Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today. Over the next 20 minutes, I will give you two things. So, a working understanding of what a systematic review actually is, and an honest sense of whether this is a project you might want to take on yourself or not. So, let's start. A little bit about myself. I'm a first year PhD researcher at Maynooth School of Business, and I'll start my second year in October. My PhD is funded by Hume Scholarship. In my home country, I worked as an assistant lecturer, and in terms of like my academic qualifications, it includes Bachelor in Medicine, Master in Health Management, and Master in Public Health. In terms of my research activity, I have 8 peer review publications, 149 citations, and H index of 4. I'm putting these numbers not to impress you, but I want to make one point. 4 years ago, none of them existed. So back in 2021, I had 0 publications. So if you're sitting here thinking I will never publish anything as an undergrad, I want you to hold to that thought for the upcoming slides. Back in August 2021, I joined the Fast Track Systematic Review Challenge. It was honestly a training program that promised to teach you how to do a systematic review in a short period of time. I signed up because I wanted to learn a method, and I had no idea it would lead me here, like doing my PhD in Ireland. And I want to be careful how I say this. The point is not to join this program and you'll be fine, but the point I want to make is that I chose one method, which is a systematic review, and I give it a real attention, and that's what turned into everything else. So if you want to take one thing from today, you do not need to know your whole future. You just to learn one method and you are willing to learn it properly. Why to conduct a systematic review? Honestly, there are 3 reasons that matter for you, especially as undergraduate thinking about research. First is the trust. Regardless of your field, every policy, every best practice document you will ever read sits on the top of a systematic review. And in short, a systematic review means a review of many studies. Second, learning a systematic review is a transferable skill. So you will learn how to develop a research question, conduct article appraisal, synthesize evidence, and that sequence works in education, in engineering, in business. So learn it once and use it everywhere. Third, and this is the one I want you to hear, a well-developed systematic review is one of the few genuinely publishable pieces of work an undergraduate can produce. So you do not need a lab, you do not need a large cohort, you just need your computer, a good research question, and a dedicated 4 to 6 months of disciplined attention. By the end of the session, you will learn what is a systematic review, how to develop a research question abiding by what is called a PICU. You will understand how to build a search string and follow the Prisma flow diagram. And you will learn what is called risk of bias assessment and to interpret a forest plot. To start, this is what is called the hierarchy of evidence. And as you might notice, the systematic reviews and meta-analysis sits on the top because they synthesize evidence from everything below. Roughly speaking, let's assume a case control study. This is a case control study tells doctors to use medication X for a particular patient, but a systematic review tells you the opposite. So as a reader or a professional in a particular field, trust what the systematic review is saying. A systematic review is a structured, transparent, reproducible census of all studies that answers a specific question. I want to emphasize here a systematic review is structured, which means every step is planned in advance. Transparent, which means every decision is documented, as you will see in next slides, and reproducible. Reproducible means someone else would take your protocol, redo your review, and land on the same set of included studies. So let's take a quick question, which you can answer in the chat, or if you're free to unmute yourself. Which of these structured, transparent, and reproducible you think are the most important for a review to be trusted? I'll give it like a moment in the chat to look at your answers. Transparent, okay. Any more answers? Okay, so let me help you with this. Closer selection of studies. Okay, it's a good question. Good answer. Okay, so reproducible. Excellent. So the most accurate answer would be reproducible because it is by default infer that the study is also the selection is also structured and transparent. Let's go to the next slide. So let's assume you right now want to start a systematic review. What is the starting point? You need to understand everything in a systematic review flows from the question. If the question is wrong, vague, or unanswerable, no amount of good technique later will save you. You must make sure of the following. Is your question answerable? By this I mean, are there enough studies in the world to synthesize evidence from? If your topic is new and only 2 studies exist about it, it doesn't make sense to conduct a systematic review on. Second, is your question specific? For example, if I gave your question to another researcher, would they search on other databases? Will they use the same terms you will use? If not, make sure your question is more tight. Third, is your question meaningful? Would anyone change how they perform their work based on your answer, whether it is another researcher or a policymaker? So as you notice this research tip, the single best investment you can make in a review is the time you spend on phrasing the review question. So to properly phrase a review question, you need to make sure you follow the following, the PICO. PICO means like the population. So let's take this example. Who are you studying? You cannot say like, I will study this research question on young people. Be more specific. Adolescent from the age 12 to 18. This is a proper population. The intervention, also be more specific. Do not say mindfulness, but say school-based mindfulness program. Also try to be more specific. The comparison group, it can be either standard activity classes like physical exercise classes, or it can be no intervention or another therapy. Also be more specific, what are you comparing with? Lastly, the outcome. Be more specific. I want to measure anxiety scores after 12 weeks. So to revise or to read a properly phrased research question, let's read it. In adolescents aged from 12 to 18, does a school-based mindfulness compared with the usual physical exercise reduce anxiety scores at 12 weeks? So this is a specific research question that is appropriate for a systematic review. So once you phrase your research question, now you want to convert it to a research string, or what is called a search syntax. To build it up, you can use Boolean operators. This can be and, or not. I'll take you through this example, but just a side note, do not rely on not because it can miss some of the good records. So most likely what I prefer, just use and or. So our research question is related to adolescent, mindfulness, and anxiety. So how to build that? We will use synonyms of adolescence, so adolescent or teenager, synonyms of mindfulness and or meditation. And lastly, anxiety will not use synonyms for it. And to connect all these, we will use the Boolean operator of and. So this is a properly written search string. What you will do next is that you will open, for example, any database. I took here like PubMed as an example, and I will paste the search string here. When I click search, it will take me to 800 and some results. So you want to take the references that are captured here and import them to your reference manager system. So you will click on send to Citation Manager, and it will export a file that you will save in your laptop for later steps. Based on your field, you will know which databases are common for you to use. So you can use PubMed, Scopus, Web of Science. It will depend on your field. And in each database, you will paste your search string, export a file, which you will later import to your reference manager system. Personally, I use EndNote, but you can use Zotero. It's for free or monthly. When you import all these references from the different databases into your EndNote, you will start what is called deduplication. Just with a single click, you will ask your reference manager system to deduplicate the references. So any duplicates will be removed. Then you export the deduplicated references from EndNote, for example, and import them later on into a software called, or like a website called Ryan. This is Ryan. So Ryan, simply you import your deduplicated files and you start making decisions. I will exclude this study, the reason it's out of scope. I will exclude this study because it's a duplicate, etc. And this step is in particular, it's called title and abstract screening. When you do so, make sure you activate the blind mode. A blind mode means like each one of the research team take a decision on their own without knowing the others' final decision. Let's go back. So we imported them to Ryan, we started the screening, we will do first the title and abstract screening and arrange a meeting with our teammate to resolve conflicts in decisions. Then later on, we will do full text screening, so which is a decision you make after you read the full article. And later on, also you arrange a meeting with your teammate to resolve, to end up with having the final included samples of articles. This point could have been mentioned earlier, which is the Prisma. So you simply Google Prisma, download a Word document, and this Word document would look like that. So it is a set of boxes upon which you document each step. So from each databases, we collected a total of 300 articles. X numbers excluded because they are duplicates. In the title and abstract screening, we exclude X number. What is important is that in the end, you end up, for example, let's say 60 articles. So this is the Prisma, preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis. And this is very important. You cannot conduct a systematic review without accurately documenting these numbers. A side step also requires 2 team members, which is a risk of bias assessment. This step simply you download a checklist from Google, and this checklist would be, you will accurately select it based on the study design of the included studies. So if you have randomized control studies in your final sample, you download a quality assessment tool that assesses randomized control study. And pay attention, they do not just judge the findings of the article, but they judge the methodology, how good this study was methodologically sound. This is a sample of a risk of bias assessment I have conducted. So I used this checklist, and it's formed of a set of questions. By the way, you are the one who prepares this Excel sheet. So we have, like, let's say 7 questions, and in each article I read, I judge whether this question is addressed or not, or this point is addressed or not. Then we start hand in hand to extract the data. Also, to extract the data, you need to develop your own Excel sheet and have the title or the heading of different columns prepared in advance. So from this article, I will extract the study design, the N means the sample size, the effect size. Based on your research topic, you will determine in advance what are the different data themes you want to extract from the article. I will not go deeper into what is a meta-analysis, but what I want to emphasize is that you cannot conduct a meta-analysis unless you conduct a systematic review first. So you conduct a systematic review. Later on, if the articles are homogeneous in terms you manage to extract quantitative numbers from these articles, later on you can push the systematic review further to develop a meta-analysis and make this diagram, which is called forest plot. So a systematic review, after you extract the data, you will determine, can you push it forward to be a meta-analysis, or the articles are not homogeneous enough to pool your results. To start writing, like the systematic review, have extracted the data. Let's start drafting the manuscript. You start with writing the methods. So the methods, you write your Prospero registration number. Let's take here. Simply, you Google Prospero, open this website, draft your protocol, and in your protocol, you write the PICO, or the population intervention outcome. What are your inclusion and exclusion criteria? You will know them more precisely as you do the screening. Everything you start drafting your protocol on Prospero. After you register your protocol, by the way, you must do this before data extraction, after title and after finishing the screening, but before data extraction. So you write the Prospero registration number, search string, databases, inclusion, exclusion criteria, quality assessment. After you write the methodology, write the results. The results would start with Prisma flowchart. You start by drafting a description of your articles. So how many articles, in which countries, different types of population, different spectrum of the sample size. Then later on, you try to analyze your data, try to give them your point of view as a subjective researcher. Then you write the introduction, then the discussion. This is a proper sequence according to the training I have taken. So a common mistake you can go through is that you pick a research question that is too broad. Picking a research question that is broad, it's not a particularly a mistake, but it means that what you want to study is not appropriate for a systematic review. It can be a scoping review or another types of review. You pick a keywords that do not capture everything, so you just used adolescent, you didn't mention teenagers, so you will miss some of the eligible studies. You use one database. This is very rare, almost you cannot select one database for systematic review. Try to pick 3 to 4 databases. Make sure to do the quality assessment step and always draft your protocol and any refinements you make, because your Prospero protocol, you can later update it and refine it. You must make sure your systematic review is reproducible. So what I want to emphasize is that research is not a talent, it's a learnable skill, but it requires consistency, curiosity, and mentorship. The 5 pieces of advice that I want to give you, choose question you genuinely care about. It must be something you are excited to explore. So from my field, and also it coincided with the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's by default, I was interested to detect outbreaks early. So I discovered my research interest. This is very important for you to be honest with yourself. I don't want to do research for the sake of doing research. What I'm really interested, and I will not get bored by reading more and more articles about. Plan before you collect data or extract data. Spend some time planning. Also ask and consult professionals in your field regarding this research question is good. Is this an important topic in the field right now? Is it the proper way of extracting this data from the articles? Keep organized records. So personally, for each systematic review, I have a Google document file or folder. I keep documenting everything, even if I will change my mind later, but I document my train of thoughts. As mentioned, ask for feedback, and remember, research is not a marathon, it's a sprint. Every published paper began with someone asking a question, and you can always leverage the services that are offered by the university. For example, consult a librarian, contact a professor. They can be really helpful to make sure you get the proper mentorship you will need. And I want to thank you and start taking your questions.